Donald Trump to rise and to stay in office. And that's why, you know, we're the movement. We're here not just to beat Trump. We're here to beat the forces that caused him to rise. And that's white supremacy. That's systemic oppression. That's a government that responds to the interests of big business, but not its own people. We're 4 months into a pandemic. It's impossible for me to be on a call right now with you all without acknowledging that the reason we're on a call right now is because we are all in the middle of a pandemic that's reshaped our lives and caused enormous pain and suffering across this country. I know anytime that I'm joining a group of this size, that I'm joining a group where somebody has probably lost a friend or a family member, where folks have had their lives upended. They've had lost businesses. They've had to switch to homeschooling, any number of things. For me, when I think about COVID's impact on our country, I think of a phrase that's super common within the humanitarian community. You may have heard it after Hurricane Katrina. There's no such thing as a natural disaster. And the idea behind that phrase is, sure, there are hurricanes, right? Sure, there are earthquakes, but the actual number of people that a hurricane kills or an earthquake kills, that's a function of your society. That's a function of how you've constructed your emergency system, of how you've constructed your buildings and infrastructure, of whether you have public health services that actually protect people. And so there's no such thing as a natural disaster. There are only factors that we have decided as a country that make people more or less vulnerable. And there's the way that we respond that makes people more or less vulnerable. And so COVID right now in our country, this is a pandemic that's happening everywhere, but the way that it's happening, the way that it's playing out in the United States, that's a function of the decisions that we have made as a country that make people more vulnerable to this disease, that have made them more vulnerable and disposable in general. Right? We didn't get here by accident. We've prioritized profits for corporations over wages and protections for workers. We've underfunded the agencies that are supposed to protect us. We've deregulated the corporations that are allowed to exploit us. We've created these massively inhumane systems of detention and mass incarceration that are harming people every day and that have become death traps functionally in the era of COVID. We've gutted our social safety net, and we've created the kind of country where a stunning number of people have lived 1 or 2 paychecks away from disaster for a really long time. And simultaneously, we are in the middle of this historic reckoning with police violence and white supremacy spurred by the murder of George Floyd and by this powerful, vibrant movement that is rising up nationwide. And of course, those things are deeply connected, right? Because we know that white supremacy is what let Donald Trump get elected in the first place. It's what shaped our country. It's shaped our institutions. It's driven who lives and dies in this pandemic. What we're seeing as people pour into the streets to demand justice and dignity right now is that our fights are interlinked, that we get out of this mess only if we stand together and fight together. That's where we start. And in terms of the potential, we're also getting ready for an election that will shape the future of this country, that quite literally determines the path of our democracy. We all know right now that beating Donald Trump and his enablers won't fix everything, but we know that it is an absolutely crucial first step to any kind of recovery. So I want to take us back again to 4 years ago, because a lot of us came together in that moment when the future was uncertain. Democratic leadership in Washington was stunned. Indivisibles across the country were getting angry and organized. We're folks who step up when things look scary and uncertain. We know, even when it seems terrible, there is just so much that we can do to fight back. And for the last 3 years, that's what we've done, right? We saved the Affordable Care Act like 6 times. We built the blue wave that flipped the House. We brought Democrats into state houses and governorships nationwide. And with that new power in Washington, we turned impeachment from, a whisper into a roar, into a political reality. And now we're once again in a moment where what we do is going to change the political landscape. So I'm going to break down a little bit of what that looks like, and then we are going to go to questions. First things first, we are still fighting for a just response in Washington that protects people from COVID and what is happening right now, and that protects our elections from the oncoming, I'm not allowed to curse on this call, oncoming clusterfuck that's going to happen in November. I can curse, right? I mean, I'm the only one, and you're all on mute.
We're all grown-ups here. Don't worry. My kids are out of the room. I have the littlest ones. Don't worry.
I get emails from my parents when I do. So, anyways, nonetheless,
they're not on the call.
They're not on the call. They just follow my Twitter account. So, anyways, nonetheless, right now there is still a debate happening in Washington about trillions of dollars that are going out the door. Legislation's being considered that can either protect our elections or can ensure that they have not got the funding, the technical support, the requirements that they need to happen functionally. We have an important role in holding a light on Republican corruption and cruelty, and also forcing Democrats to hold their ground and fight for what we're going to need in order to have a functional election in November. But that also brings me to the part that I think we're all really, really excited about and ready to move on, which is we've got the actual election to win. We are going to be doing things that are different than what we did in 2018. We might not be knocking doors quite the same way. We might not be using all the same tactics, but we are absolutely going to come up with new ones. We are going to innovate. We are going to be texting. We are going to be calling. We are going to be writing letters. We're going to be figuring out whatever kind of tools we can to make sure that we knock virtually every door we can, that we hit every voter we can, that we elect Amar Kempa-Najjar, that we ensure that we not only hold, but expand our House lead, that we flip the Senate, that we beat Donald Trump. We are going to be doing a powerful nationwide response to make sure that we actually take all of the volunteer energy that is surging through this country right now and turn it into tangible electoral victories and build the kind of country where we have the democratic power to actually make our institutions responsive, to actually change some of the laws that have been hurting us all along, to build the kind of country where the things that have happened under Donald Trump cannot happen again. So I am so thrilled to be here with you tonight. I want to get into question and answer. I want to talk about what's going on in California. Thank you again for having me, because we are going to change this country in November.
Woo! Okay. I was almost crying within the first 20 seconds of you talking to us, because Diana, who introduced you, and a couple of our other members, Susan, who's here with us, who took the Indivisible movement to heart and ran for school board and won. So yeah, so she's here with us. Within weeks of the Women's March, we had our first Indivisible Fallbrook meeting. And I'll be really quick. The thing about Fallbrook is as you know, we're in D50, which is very red. We have a history of white supremacy in our little small town that people don't like to talk about. And at that first meeting, we had 50 people, and we all were like, "You're a liberal? You're a liberal?" It was like we all came out of the avocado groves and found each other, and we're no longer afraid to be vocal in a conservative town. So Indivisible gave us that kind of courage. And so what you guys have done was, I mean, I think I can speak for everyone. It felt like a preserver to hang on to after that election, because it was so dark. So what you guys have done has changed our country, changed our world, changed a lot of our lives. So thank you. I have big questions. I have small questions. I'm going to start with a question from one of our members, Rand. It's kind of a macro question. With all the chaos and corruption going on in our country, what, in your opinion, is the most important thing we should be focusing on?
Goodness. Okay. Well, first, I just want to respond and thank you for that incredibly kind introduction, which gives us way too much credit, because the incredible thing about a social movement is that we are all building it together, and that you actually did that and you found your power. And, what we did was we wrote some words, and they, live on a document unless somebody puts it into action. So you're the ones who actually brought a community together and turned it into change. And I'm really just proud to be part of this with you.
Thank you.
Oh my God, the single most important thing to focus on?
Just one.
As we're so good at focusing on just one thing, right? Look, I think that macro level, I reject the premise a little bit, because I just believe that we are all capable of walking and chewing gum at the same time. And I also believe that we're part of our entire theory of change is that we're part of a cycle of protest to power, right? So the actions that we do to protest a sitting member of Congress is also about writing the attack narratives that are going to run against them in November. Y'all know this better than anyone, right? And so it's not for me a matter of there's one thing that you must do and you should do it from now through the end of the year. It's a matter of what's the most impactful thing to do at any given moment. So right now, that may well be protest. That might well be mutual aid for COVID folks, or folks who are experiencing and being devastated by COVID in your community, because that's actually building up the community power that's going to be put to use as we turn to full-time electoral work. Obviously, at some point in the cycle, we really are going all in on the electoral work, right? What we know we need to do is reach as many people in your district as possible. What we know we need to do is reach as many people in swing states to get to that path to 270 as possible. What we know we need to do is flip the Senate. There's always going to be a rotating menu of tactics that are the right thing to do, right? Whether that's texting late in the game, whether that's calling earlier, whether that's letter writing earlier. But what I would say is that the most important thing consistently is just to be active. Like, there is never not something impactful that you can be doing if you believe in and if you're committed to following that full cycle of protest to power.
So I don't know, how do you inspire people to get off the sidelines? Because that has been something that it's universal, I'm sure, with every group. We have 600 members, on our Facebook page.
Yep.
But there's probably 2 to 3 dozen people that are like consistent volunteers and stuff. And I get it. We're all busy. Last year was a non-election year. Now we have a pandemic. But we're all, just volunteers trying to like get other people to like join us in sending some postcards or knocking on doors or, whatever. And I mean, is there a magic formula? Is there any group that's, is it free food? Like, what's the trick?
Free food is great. I love free food. But no, I would say, so first, I know Nina's on the call, and we'll always be happy to work with you on sort of what is the recruitment and outreach and nutrition plan. Yeah. More broadly, I guess I would say, I think it's a combination of personal outreach and relationship building and giving people a sense of their own agency, right? So it's everything from, if you've got an early member list for people who showed up for a meeting back in 2018, calling through those folks and just actually, giving them a touch and asking them to come to the next meeting personally, to making sure that, once you have them in, that they have a really immediate, tangible sense of the impact that they're having, whether that's like a numerical, together we produce this many postcards, or whether it's really being able to tell a clear story of what your activism has produced over the time that they've been involved. So I think it's just those two, the combination of those two things. It's just people having a personal connection and knowing that they'll be missed and they'll be seen if they come to the meeting. And then also people having a real sense that their activism is leading to an action or to impact.
Well, one of the things that our activism has I think kind of led to is getting Duncan Hunter indicted and kicked out of office, which has put us in a very weird position, because even when he was still in office, the indivisible model of calling your congressman didn't really work for us because his staff was outwardly hostile. And the one town hall we got him that he did was he mocked us, basically. So now that he's gone, we are without representation, and we now have Isa moving from the 49th over to our district with name recognition, against Amar, who came this close in this district to winning. So 2-part question: what is the indivisible kind of national organization doing to help us win that district and to boost Amar, since he was the first, nationally endorsed candidate?
Sure.
Yep. And does ISA have an Achilles heel that we as grassroots people can, exploit?
Sure. Absolutely. Well, so I think I'll take ISA and then Amar. So ISA, we know that ISA is beatable because ISA has lost before, right? And part of the way that he lost back in 2018 was his sheer, well, I mean, he actually retired, but he
quit.
He retired because he knew the direction things were heading. Anyways, and part of his weakness at that point was that he was himself, when in Congress, inaccessible to people, right? He, hid on the roof of his own office. He avoided protesters from, here in California to his own fundraisers in Florida. He was a famously inaccessible member of Congress. And so I think that there's a piece there that's kind of like, he wasn't showing up and doing the job in the 49th district. Why would he be doing it here? That's just me talking off the top of my head, though. I very much recognize that y'all are going to have a set of messages that might be the right ones for your district. So that's my thought. I think a lot of times there's a set of people who are reachable, not necessarily on an ideological message, but on the message of, is this somebody who's actually going to work for you and listen to you? And a lot of times that can be a really powerful thing that indivisibles can drive home, especially in cases where you've got an absentee member. So that's my thought there. In terms of national, in national engagement, yes, so we are excited that Amara Campa-Najjar is an endorsed candidate. We have been building out a sort of general election program, which we'll be launching later, not this month, but likely next month in July. That'll be kind of the full transition to the general election. For endorsed candidates, for folks who are part of either target Senate races, the path to 270, or target House, or the House races that we've endorsed in, there's going to be continued peer-to-peer support. So using kind of the broader volunteer portal that we've got, that is folks from all over the country, to make sure that we're supporting folks via texting, via calling, et cetera. Continued ongoing national uplifting of stories and press support. And just making sure to continue to stay engaged on the race. So I think what I would say is that we'll definitely be focusing on how we can direct volunteer energy into the district and make sure that that is a competitive race, and that we're doing what we can to contribute.
Okay. Before we started the Q&A, you were talking about how, we have to flip the Senate, we have to protect voting security, we have to strengthen COVID outreach, which, by the way, one of our outreach things that we're really big on here in Fallbrook is we have farm workers. We're a big agricultural community, and we have a lot of farm workers. They're not migrant farm workers, they're permanent farm workers, but many are undocumented, and they live in the deeply rural part of an already rural, part of the county. And we have, over the past few years, developed a monthly outreach to them where we collect food and clothes and medicine and bandages and equipment for them, like goggles and long sleeve shirts and gloves and things like that. So that's been a huge part of our outreach. And I don't know if there's a way to kind of leverage that other than it's a good thing to do, and we're happy to do it, and we will continue to do it because it's become a huge part of our kind of mission. But how do we leverage that into electoral strength? Because if we have the right person in Congress, those people are going to be helped, even though those people don't always have a vote.
It's a great question. And I'm not sure I have like a great and unique answer for you. I think you're totally right that it is a good thing to do. It is the kind of thing that helps to build indivisibles as a community and helps to build a politics of solidarity, right? That doesn't necessarily automatically translate into it being a path to electoral power, and that's okay, right? Not everything needs to. Like, some things are things we're going to do because it's about the country that we want to be, and about the fact that we want to be the kinds of communities that hold each other up.
What considering we're in a blue state that is going to go for Biden, and we don't have a Senate race that we have to worry about this year, our focus in terms of this district will be getting Amara elected. But there's also a lot of energy that I know we want to put towards helping Senate races specifically. We've already done a postcarding campaign a couple weeks ago where we sent like 600 postcards on behalf of Mark Kelly. So we've been doing stuff with Flip the West. But sometimes it's overwhelming because there's so many like different groups that are doing these different Senate races. And I know personally, I sometimes wonder, Mark Kelly probably doesn't need our help, but maybe Jamie Harrison needs our help, but I don't know the polling numbers because I don't live in South Carolina. Like, how can we really focus our energy so that we're really, helping where we would be most impactful?
Is this a planted question for the Payback Project?
No, but we can pretend it is.
Well, nonetheless. So what I would really encourage y'all to do is sign up for the Payback Project, which is the indivisible national effort to get volunteers from all across the country to build up the strength of groups and build up the strength of indivisibles in target states, and then ultimately to be supporting the campaigns of the folks who are coming out of the general campaigns for flipping the Senate. So we've got 10 target races that we've identified right now. Not all, some of them are very, very hot potential races. Some of them are kind of the ones that might flip in a wave election. We think they're all worth contesting. We think that we're going to have the volunteer strength to really fight for all of them. We've got a data team that's figuring out when and how to target voters in each of those places. And so as you're logging in, as you're getting connected with the Payback Project, we're going to be able to say, here are the places that we're calling through right now. Here's why. You can either, call or you can text in order to reach them. So basically, we're going to try to make that as accessible and as easy as possible so that we're able to direct our energy in the most efficient possible ways to flip the Senate. So if you're not signed up for the Payback Project yet, please get signed up. We're really excited about being able to use this throughout the general election.
Awesome. I only have about 1 or 2 more questions, but if there's anyone who has thought of something that wants to put it in the chat, I'll keep my eye on that. This might be like way more of an inside baseball question than most like voters are interested in, but do you have any concerns of the split within progressives between the really, really like leftists who hate Democrats and are kind of like, I don't know, they're all the same, I might as well just stay home, Biden's like Trump, versus normal Democrats who like want to see some progress, even if it's not as extreme as some of us would like it to be? Like, do you think that's a real problem for the Democratic Party, or do you think that's mostly something that lives on Twitter?
It's a good question. So I think that there are genuine and deep ideological debates going on within the Democratic Party right now. I also think the faction of people who are like, if I lose a primary, I'm taking my ball and going home and I'm out, that's a really small number of people, and they are super overrepresented on Twitter. I think the vast majority of this debate is between people who have different ideological positions, but are all in right now for the general election. And I think you see that right now if you're looking across the progressive ecosystem. Pretty much nobody is taking their ball and going home right now. People recognize that this is an election that will define the future of this country. They recognize that primaries are the moment for having the ideological debate, and then general elections are the moment for beating the plutocratic white supremacists. And people are really committed. And I think you're seeing that. And I think the other thing that is important for me about that is, when you win as the general election nominee, you're building a coalition party, right? You are trying to bring in everyone so that they see themselves included within your party. And so it's not enough to just win the primary. You want to actually be doing the outreach so that everybody sees themselves as included. And that means outreach to youth. That means outreach to young voters of color. That means outreach to progressives. And that's something that we've tried to stress as we engage the Biden campaign and, say, we're all in. We signed the indivisible pledge. We're very clear that we are fighting for you in the general election. And you're going to be stronger if you're actively engaging these folks and listening to their concerns and really thinking about yourself as the leader of a coalition that does have these ideological differences within it, and thinking about where you can advance that ball. Is that helpful?
Yeah, I think so. Absolutely. We did get a question from Sally, I think. Which method shows the greatest return in getting out the vote? Phone banking, postcards, letter writing? We want to best utilize our time and energy.
Yes. Okay. Great question. So relational and canvassing are definitely at the top of the pack. This is not the year. So that's unfortunate. I think the answer in general is that it tends to depend on the campaign, the time of the year, and the contact rate. In general, things that are higher effort and more direct contact tend to be better. So a phone call conversation tends to be better than an individual text. An interactive text conversation tends to be better than a letter. But that's really generalized and not specific to individual campaigns, which might be more successfully targeted depending on who you're reaching out to, what time of the cycle it is, what the data is. Which is all just to say there's not one single answer. Certainly the things that put you in direct contact with your own social network or with people who know you are higher impact than the things that do not. And that's why, we've tried to construct efforts that really do that. But the reality is that we're going to have to do all of the above in order to win in November, because the other thing is some voters are better reached by text, some voters are better reached by phone call, right? If you call me on my phone, I will assume that somebody has died. Whereas if you text me, I'm going to be like, oh, hi, how are you? I can engage. Whereas that's the opposite, right? For some voters, where if you're texting them, they're like, why on earth would you do this to me? And it's just going to be a matter of trying to hit people on every medium that works for them.
Can you talk a little bit about the Protect the Results project?
Yes, absolutely. So Protect the Results, is something that we launched last week. It is a vehicle and a platform for organizing in the event of a situation where Donald Trump either loses the election or disputes the results of the election in a way that creates a lot of chaos the day after the election. So the idea is, we know this is a possibility. We want to have all of our energy right now focused on winning the election, but we also need to be prepared for the eventuality that Donald Trump is going to, refuse to concede, essentially. And that's especially important because we know that there are going to be huge vote by mail totals in a lot of really important states, which means that it's quite possible that we're not going to know who won the election for like a week or more. And so this is basically saying, let's work together across the progressive movement. Let's have a plan. Let's be, informed by what experts on democracy are saying is potential and likely, but let's be sure that we're all committed, signed up, and ready in advance to turn out in the event that Donald Trump is trying to steal the election. So encourage you to sign up. We're going to be working with other folks around like what is the actual set of scenarios and response plans. But what we know is going to be important in the event that this happens is there be a powerful nationwide movement that immediately rejects any effort to steal the election.
Yeah. I had a question and it just popped out of my head. I think that's probably it. Diana, do you have anything yes, no? I'm not seeing any more things popping up. I just really, again, we so appreciate you joining us, and I think we're all anxious to do something, and we sometimes spin our wheels so much that we lose sight of like where we should focus first. So I appreciate Indivisible always giving such clear like instructions and plans. Like I said, it's absolutely like you said, we're doing, one's doing the work, but to have something to grab onto that feels so easy to understand and share and accessible and smart. Oh, I know what my question was. Who do you think Biden's going to pick for VP, and is Indivisible endorsed anyone?
Great question. Actually, do folks want a thread in the chat box if they've got a preferred candidate? Just pop it in.
Right, she's right here. Her name is Elizabeth Warren. But
so we have not endorsed a preferred candidate. Like we wouldn't do that without, consulting everyone involved. We did do a poll of membership, which we released last week. And so the results of that poll were Elizabeth Warren was at the top of the pack, followed behind by Kamala Harris and Stacey Abrams, pretty close together. And then a set of folks who were not as close, bringing up the other end. So what we know is that there's a lot of enthusiasm across the Indivisible network for Warren, for Harris, for Abrams. Hopefully, the Biden campaign is listening. We passed those results along just to make sure that they were aware that this is some of the folks that our people are enthusiastic about. I think I'm not going to speculate. I do think that there are really strong reasons for all three of those folks to be really under serious consideration. So fingers crossed.
Yeah. So chat, we've got 2 votes for Kamala, 1 vote for Val Demings.
Oh yeah, Val.
Someone asked what happens to Kamala's Senate seat if she gets picked.
I believe the governor of California would appoint a replacement, and then maybe there would be a special election. But certainly one of the advantages of her being picked is that we would not be super worried about winning that special election.
Right. But do you think that people don't understand that Elizabeth Warren's seat would be safe as well? I feel like I'm constantly telling people.
This is like a common misconception. Yeah. Yes. So Warren's seat would also be safe. She is another person who we would not risk a Senate seat.
Yeah. Oh, Leah, bless your heart. 2 times.
Oh, wait, we got one more question from Anne.
Okay.
Oh, Anne.
Is Indivisible still focused on removing the filibuster?
So that is still a long-term priority of ours. We recognize that the moment when that's going to be most relevant is when we've got a Democratic trifecta. So right now we're focused on getting that Democratic trifecta so that we can then get rid of the filibuster and then pass all of the awesome legislation that we need to have. But yes, absolutely. If we get Joe Biden in office, if we get a Democratic Senate, if we've expanded our lead in the House, as soon as we try to move a gun violence prevention bill, as soon as we try to move a major voting rights bill, all of those things, they're going to be subject to the filibuster. And so we are definitely going to need to be prepared to say to our Democratic legislators as well, filibuster is not an excuse for not getting things done. We need to get things done.
That's right. Well, Anybody have their questions? Because this wonderful woman has spent some time from her day on the East Coast and
Pregnant, she's tired.
and we are inspired. We are so happy that you took some time to share with us. Each one of these people on this call, I know, is now resolved to go a little bit harder, a little bit clearer, a little bit better. So
Thank you.
thank you. Say hi to Ezra for us, okay?
Will do.
Thank you for visiting us. Do you know what you're having, or is it secret?
It's a boy.
Yay! Boy. Okay. Well, take care. Okay.
Congratulations.
And thank you so much. We don't want to keep you. I know it's late and you need to go get your rest, darling.
Well, thank you. It's a pleasure to be here with you, and thank you for everything you're doing. It is an honor to be part of this movement with you.
Thank you, Leah, for everything.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Bye-bye.
Yay. Yay. So we're going to stick around if you want to talk for a little bit. Is anybody?
Yeah, and folks, I'll stay on as well. If anybody has any additional questions that they didn't get to ask Leah, I'm happy to take them as well. And I will also share the poll that she mentioned about the VP candidates with Diana and with Jenny. And you guys can share with the group. Yeah.
Can I jump in really quick? Is everyone still muted, Diana? Because I was thinking.
No, everybody can be unmuted.
We're unmuted.
You can
Oh,
definitely.
okay. I didn't know.
You guys have to know Nina because she is our West Coast representative indivisible, and we're very lucky to have her. San Diego lady right here, and just really in our corner. So if you have questions or considerations or anything, Nina is here and she does respond. So if you have any questions or comments or anything, we can talk for a minute here because it starts.
I try to respond as quickly as I possibly can, but some days I'm 16 hours into video conferences and I haven't even touched my email. So I do try as much as I can, and I'm going to put my email address in the chat box.
We have a question about, I don't know if you see the question about voter registration for young people, outreach for young
voters. So the groups individually are doing as much work as they possibly can. I think the traditional way that folks have been doing voter registration for young people has been on campuses. That obviously hasn't been something we've been able to do, but in seats like the 25th district, they were trying to connect with young voters through text message because young people are more inclined to respond to a text message than answer the phone. And it's something that we are focusing on as we go into our 2020 general election planning. Obviously, we will have a national strategy, but I think groups need to have their own individual strategies because every district is different. So, for example, the 25th district had 2 universities in it, whereas, a district in downtown LA might not have a university in it, or a district in a rural part of California isn't going to have a university in it. So the efforts that we have going on national might not necessarily be as tailored as they can be in a district. And does the 50th district have any colleges or universities?
With Cal State San Marcos.
Cal State San Marcos is in the 50th district.
No, it's not. It's in the 49th.
Is it 49?
It's in the 49th.
Well, we have a satellite campus, the Palomar satellite.
That's true. That's true.
And the community colleges. So, when we're talking about what the 2020 general election plan looks like for the 50th district, we'll definitely talk about how we can get connected with those community college students and get them registered to vote in this, virtual world that we're in right now.
Well, and we're really ready to do that. Believe me, we want to go out to the thing we have on the other side of the 76 that is a small campus, but it's Cal State Palomar Community College.
Palomar Community College, yeah.
We really want to go out there and register voters. So we need to reach out and do that with those folks.
Definitely. And, I'm offering this up to all of my groups. Some are really excited about it. Some don't care to have my help, which is totally fine. Everybody is entitled to what they need. But if any group is looking to craft what an electoral plan looks like in, the various scenarios that we might have, whether it's we don't ever open and we can't do any traditional fields organizing and traditional canvassing, and what it looks like to have a late start. So say it starts looking like we can open up in October and we can pick up for 1 month and do a really strong field effort. But having that planned out early is really important. So, speak amongst your leadership and amongst your steering committee. And if that's something you want to sit down and have a discussion about, I would be more than happy to schedule that time and figure out what looks right for your district.
That would be brilliant, because we're going to be meeting soon online and talking about, okay, now we've had Leah and she's inspired us. Now, what is the plan of action and milestones? What are we going to be doing? Because we want to have something that we can tell our new members and our seasoned members, hey, you know what? You've got stuff you can do, whether it's online or whether it's face-to-face. So we need your guidance though, Nina, because really, this is a whole new world for us as far as what's going on. So
Nina, do you know?
For us too.
Someone is asking if there have been voter registration booths or outreach at any of the protest marches. I don't think I've seen stuff like that, only because they've been so organic and movement focused.
So we've seen a couple up in LA at a couple of the protests that I've been to. Now, I am very, I'm not going to protest very liberally, because I have a father who is immunocompromised, and so we do a protest and then we stay 2 weeks away from him, and so we've been really scattered about it. But at the ones I have been to, I have seen individuals doing voter registration. Oh. We are not directing any of our groups to lead a voter registration effort, because we do really think that it's important right now for our groups, which are predominantly white allies. We don't have a ton of, we don't really have a lot of Black group leaders or even predominantly Black groups. So in that vein, we are making sure that we are directing our groups to follow what the Black-led organizations are doing. And if Black-led organizations feel like it's a little bit opportunistic to be using it as a voter registration drive, we're making sure our groups aren't overstepping that boundary. But I have seen it in LA, a couple of Black-led organizations doing voter registration, especially targeting the young voters that are coming out to protest. So it's happening, but I think it's much scarcer than we would have imagined.
Well, we're going to wait for your guidance on that, okay?
So this
definitely.
So this is David French here with a comment on that. A couple of weekends ago, I attended and did the sound for a protest that happened at Vista that was led by the youth. And I'll tell you, I was extremely impressed. They had an outstanding security group. They had a booth set up. They were registering people. I think to the extent that we can make contact with their leadership, I mean, it was the best protest I have ever been to. And
do you remember the name of the group that organized it?
You know, I don't, but I'll pass that on to Diana as soon as I can get that.
Please point it, David. We would love to be able to know that.
There were about 500 people there, and I would say it was probably 50% Black, and the average age was probably about 35.
Perfect.
And the night before, we went to a march, a memorial in Encinitas, and it was huge. Yeah. And they also had voter registration there, and a lot of young kids.
Okay.
Yeah,
so they are,
the
voter registration is showing up. Pardon me?
Was that the one that was the paddle out?
No, this was the memorial at Cardiff.
At the Cook.
Oh,
At the Cook.
At the Cook.
Oh, nice.
Yeah. Thank you.
So for those who don't know, I'm originally from Encinitas.
Ah, okay.
So I have a ton of friends that were at a couple of the protests.
So Ellen is the one who Ellen Montanari.
Yeah.
So she's plugged into those people.
Okay, and also probably Mitzi and Tim.
Yeah,
what I found was really interesting about this is that it was just the kids. Yeah. And there were very few of us there, and they were so prepared, and they had all kinds of food, and they had lots of water, and all the families were there. And the families got to take a lot of food home, which I think they appreciated.
Really?
They marched all the way to the 78 and back. And like I said, was it was a very long march that they did. I mean, it started at like 10, and I left at 4 p.m.
I think at the Civic Center.
At the Civic Center in Vista. But I'll get some names, because I think that they can use. It's kind of like we can show up to provide some help in whatever way, and they bring the army.
Yeah, they bring troops.
The only concern I will have is that everybody had masks, but you got to be real careful, because it's it's a lot of people. As a matter of fact, I'm kind of in a semi-quarantine right now until what?
Yeah.
So like mid next week.
Yeah.
Because
Thursday, I think.
we got to make sure we don't get the.
But David and Sally, thank you. So wonderful to work with you. You're in the 49th, but you're so generous with the 50th, and so I just want to lift you guys both up and say thank you so much for what you do and how you do it. So
we just follow Isa around.
That's right. and I was thinking a little comment that I'll throw out there. I was thinking, we really harassed that guy.
Yeah, we did.
I mean, I think he had dreams about the drum, the yelling, the sound system, the hundreds of people that we showed up there. And I'm just thinking that we could go that way, or we could go another way by putting together massive rallies for Amar.
Yeah.
Because I'll tell you what, I don't think they're going to be able to put a massive rally together for ISA.
No.
You're right.
And if
they can bus people in. They do that kind of thing.
Yeah.
I don't think that's going to work, because I think the type of people that are going to vote for ISA are, some of our neighbors that are big time, they're going to take your guns away, and, probably starting to question their racism, which would probably be a good idea.
Yeah.
And I think if we can put some rallies together that Amar and Mike and some other people can show up, I mean, we could probably get Barbara Boxer and Kamala Harris or whoever it is we would want if we could put together the crowds. Okay. And that would be a participation of getting a lot of Latinos in there too.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
And
so I've got the sound system. We just have to get,
a place to do it.
The army together.
Yep.
Oh, we have places. We have places, Nina. Oh, honey, we have places.
We have a bus.
So
I think if we can get a large area and social distance people, because this thing can get nasty.
Yeah.
And we're really working right now to come up with resources to help folks do a lot of that traditional organizing, but in a virtual way. So hosting virtual town halls, hosting virtual protests, virtual rallies. I think the one thing I'm trying to make sure that all of my groups realize, because obviously we're all activists, and like the first thing we want to do is like be at the protest, be on the ground, be doing that work. But I think what COVID and the combination of COVID and the BLM movement has taught us is that there are so many different lanes that lead to the same destination, and all the lanes need to be occupied. And so it's about finding which lane you are best suited in this moment. The lane that allows you to do your activism work and to make a difference, but not necessarily put yourself in danger or at risk of being exposed to COVID if you don't feel comfortable with it, or if you are immunocompromised. And so I'm really trying to make sure those resources are available to my groups. But I love the rally ideas and the town hall ideas, but we're also trying to give the resources to be able to do those virtually as well. And I have a presentation that I will also share with Diana and Jenny that is looking at the different remote voting tactics and methods, the weaknesses and the strengths of them, whether phone banking or postcarding is better, text banking versus, whatever, emails, whatever the way we're going to be doing it is. So I'll send that over as well, and hopefully it'll be a great resource. But I want everyone to realize that even if you can't go to the protest yourself, there are other lanes you can be in, and you don't have to feel like you're a bad activist if you can't be out there on the ground doing it, because we all have to make sure we're taking care of ourselves and the people around us. And so I really appreciate the desire to be getting out there and doing all of the events, and I want to provide those resources for you.
That's great. And you know what? We have a special opportunity because we have folks from Escondido, San Marcos, Temecula, Murrieta, Julian, and all of these D50 people that we are allies and that we can call on and that we can ask for help and support. So we have this special situation with us that we have brought all of this into this 1/10, and we want to be able to use that. So we want to amplify what we're doing with the people that are in D50, because we really do. Oh, and Jean, oh my gosh, LeMay.
Yes, Jean, she's just in there silently observing.
Just, well, unmute yourself, girl. What are you doing? Unmute.
I'm just listening. Just listening.
Just listening. Okay. And you know what? Jean holds a happy hour every Wednesday, and it's wonderful. And I love to go because I always feel connected. And it's a simple thing. It's not that we have to go, oh gosh, we have to like admire the problem. No, we can talk among each other and just kind of like humanize each other and get connection. So that's just super important, and I just like to acknowledge Jean that she does that, and I love to go. So I'll be.
She also does an incredible phone bank. So if you haven't had a chance to jump into the phone bank, make sure you get that information. They're working super hard to get Mark Kelly elected to the Senate in Arizona and Vice President Joe Biden to the White House. And it really is just like an insane effort to have to do it, and she does it every single week. So it's really great work. And I do want to mention as well, if you do the virtual town halls and the virtual rallies and protests, you have a bigger likelihood of being able to get more members and elected officials and candidates to attend. And that brings a nice draw as well. Yeah. It's much harder for them to say no to a Zoom call if you know that they're at home.
You will hurt our feelings. Oh no. Yes.
So I have to hop off. I have a 7 o'clock, unfortunately, but it was really wonderful getting to see all of your faces, and I'm really happy Leah was able to come and speak to you. And you have my email. Please use it as liberally and as freely as you want. I am always here. It might take me a day to get back to you, but I will always get back to you, and just really appreciate the work that you guys are doing.
Thank you so much, Nina.
Thank you
so much.
Yeah.
Well, guys, you know what? We have been recording this, so if you have a friend who missed it, we'll have it up for people to look at. So Adana and Pam and Susan and
Elena.
Elena. Oh my God. Do you know Elena's the one who brought the bar to Fallbrook before the last election? This woman, one woman crazy time.
Yeah.
She did it.
You guys are crazy.
Right here.
You're right.
So thank you. And so thank you all for coming. And Jenny, thank you for moderating and curating all this stuff. You did an awesome job, woman, as usual.
That was a treat.
Thank you, Jenny. You made us all sound so smart.
Yeah, we were.
And the greatest trick.
Yeah. Yes. Yes. And everybody's going to get on Jeopardy because we're so freaking smart.
And he was on Jeopardy.
Yeah. Any other things anyway? Thank you so much, Rand. Thank you. And Rosalie and Mark and Bertha. Thank you. And Jeff. Nice to see you. And Sally and David, of course, and Pam and Anne. Oh my God. Okay.
You guys, I want to say something that I heard that I don't know if everybody knows, and maybe Jeff wants to let people know in on what he's going to be doing in the next few months.
What?
What am I going to be doing in the next few months?
Running for office.
A lot of things, but I am running for the North County Fire Protection District.
Oh, awesome.
Nice.
Awesome.
My area is Area 4. It covers Lake Rancho Viejo, Rancho Montserrat, all that area east of the 15, the new developments, Gerd Valley, out to Live Oak Park Road. So
Wow.
looking forward to it.
Get him elected.
Jeff, thank you.
Thank you. Thanks, Susan.
Thank the Fallbrook Executive Committee for helping to put this together. So thank you all. Hooray, hooray, hooray.
Yay.
All need to go and do something else.
Okay.
And could everyone, if we haven't, we'll probably have a meeting soon like this, and I would love for everybody who's here to come back.
Yeah.
Elena, especially you with baby.
Yeah.
Is there a way to? Is there a better way to know?
Yes.
Is there a way to know about things versus Facebook? I can't do Facebook anymore.
You know, that was that was actually the question I wanted to ask Leah that popped out of my head was, are there other indivisible groups nationwide that she knows of that have found a different platform to connect on? Because
we
many
have
of us
our weekly
trying to
email.
get out of it.
We have
What?
Sean's weekly
Our weekly email.
is
Well, yes.
is the
But I
other
mean,
thing.
like the email, that's not really like a social connector. I mean, that's a more of like a one-way thing, and I'm interested to know. Baby!
Baby, sorry, I'll mute.
Oh, bye.
I've been trying out Like It and haven't decided yet whether it's actually going to work.
Okay. Or WhatsApp, but I don't know. I really don't know. But you know what?
I don't think there's an answer.
I don't think there's a
All right now.
So anyway, thank you all. I'm just looking at your sweet faces and going, thank you very much. And thank you for coming in. And thank you.